I remember the sound of the wrench clattering against the concrete floor, sharp, metallic, and too loud for how quiet the shop had been. That's when she turned. Not fast, not startled, just aware. The kind of slow turn that says she's used to noise, but not used to company. I was only supposed to drop off a part for her car. My brother had texted me earlier. Can you take this to Lena's? She's been waiting all week. I didn't even think twice. I'd been to her auto shop before, just not when she was alone. Usually there were customers, her assistant, the hum of engines. But that day, it was just her and the radio murmuring something old and slow from the corner shelf. The smell of grease mixed with citrus cleaner. A fan clicked in the corner, turning half a circle before freezing again. She looked different without the rush of work around her. Same ponytail, same rolled-up sleeves, same oil-smeared hands, but calmer, almost soft in the stillness. There was something about her that made me straighten up without realizing it. Not attraction, not yet, just awareness, like I was intruding on something private. Your brother couldn't come himself? She asked, wiping her hands with a rag that used to be white. Busy, I guess, I said, setting the box down. Said this was urgent. She smiled, not at me, but at the word urgent. Everything's urgent with him, even when it's not. I laughed, but she didn't. She just studied me for a moment, really looked. Like she was trying to figure out what kind of person brings parts he doesn't understand. I wanted to say something, anything, to fill the air, but my voice caught halfway up my throat. Want to see how it fits? She asked, already turning toward the car. I shouldn't have said yes, but I did. The hood was open, the metal warm under the lights. She leaned over, explaining something about a gasket or a line, her voice low, steady. I wasn't listening. I was watching the way her fingers traced the edges of the part, how confident they were, how sure. The smell of engine oil shouldn't feel intimate, but somehow it did. At one point she paused. Can you hand me that socket wrench? I reached for it, brushing her hand by accident. It wasn't even a full touch, just a moment of skin, a fraction of a second, but she froze. Not visibly, not enough for anyone else to notice. But I felt it. The silence that followed was too heavy for something so small. I tried to cover it with a joke. Guess I'm better as a delivery guy than a mechanic. She didn't laugh. She just looked up at me, a faint smudge of grease across her cheek, eyes sharp and unreadable. Then, quietly, almost under her breath, she said, You remind me of him sometimes. Who? I asked, though I already regretted it. She hesitated, then shook her head. Never mind. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. When I started to leave, she followed me to the door. I could feel her close behind, her presence steady but distant, like she was holding something back. I turned to say goodbye, but she leaned in, not much, just enough for her breath to brush my ear, and said, Tell your brother I'll call when it's ready. Her voice wasn't sharp. It was quiet, nearly gentle, but it lingered. It's been weeks, and I still can't remember what part one delivered. Only the sound of her whisper, the warmth of her breath, and the strange certainty that she meant something more than the words themselves. And maybe that's what's been bothering me ever since, that I can't tell whether she said it for him or for me. It had been a few weeks since that first visit, but I found myself back at Lena's shop again, this time on purpose. My brother was out of town, and she needed help moving some equipment before the rain hit. That was the excuse, anyway. The truth was, I hadn't stopped thinking about her voice, how it lingered longer than it should have. When I got there, the clouds were already low and heavy, pressing against the windows. The smell of motor oil and wet pavement blended into something oddly comforting. She was crouched beside a car, sleeves rolled, her hair falling loose around her face. She looked tired, not in the way of someone who needs sleep, but in the way of someone who carries too much. You didn't have to come, she said when she saw me. I know. She wiped her hands on a towel and gave me a small nod. Grab the dolly then. I can't lift this alone. Her tone was firm, but there was a faint crack in it, something between pride and exhaustion. I didn't comment, just did what she asked. The weight of the engine part was nothing compared to the quiet between us. Every movement seemed to echo in the empty space. The sound of metal scraping concrete, her slow exhale, my own heartbeat louder than it should have been. When we finally slid the piece into place, she leaned against the workbench, breathing hard. A strand of hair had come loose and stuck to her cheek. Without thinking, I reached out to tuck it back, but stopped halfway. She caught the motion. Her eyes met mine, unreadable. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she smiled, barely. You always look like you're about to say something. Maybe I am. She looked away. Don't. The word landed softly, but it felt heavier than anything we'd moved. We stood there, the rain starting to tap against the metal roof. She reached for a mug on the counter, took a sip, then winced. Cold again, she muttered. Here, I said, reaching for the kettle, already half filled. You don't have to, I know, I said again, pouring water anyway. She didn't stop me this time. She just watched. The silence wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't empty either. It was thick, full of everything neither of us could say. When I handed her the cup, our fingers brushed. She didn't pull away. Instead, she looked down at the rising steam, eyes distant. I used to like rainy days, she said quietly. They made me feel safe. What changed? Her jaw tightened, just slightly. Nothing stays the same forever. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she stepped past me to open the door. The sound of rain filled the space. Loud, cleansing, endless. For a moment, she stood there, watching it fall. Then she said, almost to herself, you should go before it gets worse. I nodded, but I didn't move. And when she turned, her reflection in the glass caught mine. Two figures blurred together by rain. It lasted only a second, but I still see it when I close my eyes. It was supposed to be just one more favor, dropping off a replacement fuse box after hours. The rain hadn't stopped all week, and the power in her shop kept flickering. She'd texted late. If you're up, could you bring it by? I'll be here a while. I told myself it meant nothing. But when I got there, the street was empty except for the glow of her shop light bleeding through the rain. Inside, the radio was off this time. Just the hum of a single lamp and the sound of rain against tin. She looked different in that light. Less like a mechanic, more like someone who'd forgotten what hour it was. You didn't have to come this late, she said, taking the box. You keep saying that. She gave a small laugh, one that didn't reach her eyes. Guess I don't like people seeing me tired. Her hair was loose again, a few strands clinging to her temple. She brushed them away with a distracted hand and crouched near the open panel, muttering to herself about wiring. I leaned against the counter, watching her work, trying not to. You always this quiet? She asked without looking up. Only when I shouldn't be. That made her pause. Just a fraction. Then she went back to work. Dangerous answer. True one. She smiled, faint, almost unwilling. And for the first time, I noticed how thin the line was between her calm and whatever she was holding back. Lightning flashed outside, and the lights blinked off for a second. When they came back, she was closer. Close enough that I could smell the coffee on her breath, the faint trace of metal on her skin. Hold this, she said, handing me a small flashlight. Our fingers touched again, and she didn't move away right away. For a second, I thought she might say something. Her lips parted, her eyes softened, then her phone rang. She hesitated before answering. The name on the screen glowed in the dark, Ethan. Go ahead, I said quietly. She looked at me, then at the phone, then turned her back as she picked up. Yeah, no, I'm fine. Just working late. Her voice was even, but her shoulders had gone rigid. I could hear the man's voice faintly, something clipped, impatient. When she hung up, she didn't turn around right away. That you're someone I should have stopped answering a long time ago, she said. Her voice was soft, tired. She sat down on the stool by the workbench, elbows on her knees, eyes fixed on the floor. You ever do that? Keep something around long after it's gone bad. I didn't answer. I just set the flashlight down beside her. She looked up then, and whatever was in her eyes, it wasn't an invitation. It was need. Quiet, restrained, dangerous in its honesty. The rain outside softened, but inside, everything felt louder. I stepped closer, close enough to see the reflection of the lamp in her pupils. My hand twitched at my side, wanting, stopping, wanting again. And then she whispered, "Don't." It wasn't a warning. It was a plea. So I didn't. But I stayed. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled like rain, heavy and metallic, clinging to the walls of the shop. The clock over the counter ticked too loud for how still everything was. She was sitting by the window, arms crossed, staring at the reflection of the streetlights. I don't even remember what I came for that night. Maybe an excuse. Maybe to see if what I thought I'd imagined was real. She didn't turn when I entered. Just said, quietly, "You're getting predictable. Guess I like the company." That made her look up. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did. Something cautious, almost afraid to believe I meant it. She stood, moving slowly, brushing dust from her jeans. "You shouldn't be here this late. People talk." "I don't care." "Well, I do," she said, but it came out softer than she wanted. She folded her arms again, tighter this time. We stood there, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. I could see how tired she was. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that comes from trying too long to keep something from cracking. She exhaled, rubbing the back of her neck. "You're young," she said. "You don't know what kind of trouble this is." "I know what it isn't," I said. "It isn't nothing." That stopped her. For a moment, her composure slipped. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked away, jaw tightening. "You think feelings fix things? They don't. They just make you aware of everything you can't have." The words hit harder than I expected. "I'm not trying to fix anything," I said. I don't like pretending this doesn't exist." Her eyes met mine, sharp and tired. "And what exactly is this?" The question hung there, thick and impossible. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because how do you explain something that isn't supposed to exist at all? She walked past me, reaching for the light switch, then stopped halfway. Her hand trembled slightly. "You remind me of someone," she said finally. "Someone I hurt. Someone who never stopped showing up, even when I asked him not to." Her voice cracked on the last word. She turned, leaning against the wall, staring at the floor. "I don't want to do that again." I took a step closer, careful, as if one wrong move might shatter the fragile air between us. "Then tell me to leave." She looked up. "You wouldn't." "I would." Her gaze searched mine, waiting for proof. I didn't move, didn't blink. Then she said, barely above a whisper, "That's the problem, isn't it? You mean it." The silence after that felt endless. She walked back to her chair, sank into it, elbows on her knees. "I used to think loneliness was safer than regret," she said, her voice trembling now. "But lately, I can't tell the difference." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because for the first time, I realized she wasn't warning me away. She was warning herself. She wasn't at the shop for a few days after that night. The place stayed dark whenever I passed by. The open sign flipped to the side that said "Be right back," though it was clear she hadn't been. When she finally texted, it was short. "If you're around, I could use a hand moving some boxes." It was the most ordinary message she could have sent, and the most loaded. When I got there, she looked different. Not worse, not better, just somewhere else entirely. Her hair was down, and she wore an old sweatshirt that had seen too many years. The kind of comfort clothes people wear when they're trying to hide from something inside themselves. "Sorry," she said as I walked in. "I should have called earlier." "It's fine." The boxes were stacked near the back wall, sealed but unlabeled. She didn't say what was inside, and I didn't ask. We moved them in silence, the kind that felt deliberate, almost protective. After the last one, she sat down on a stool, rubbing her wrist. "You ever keep something too long?" she asked quietly. I smiled faintly. "Define something." "Memories," she said. "People. Things that don't belong to you anymore, but still feel like they do." I didn't answer right away. She reached for one of the boxes, hesitated, then pulled at the tape. Inside were photos, old, worn, faded at the corners. Some were of cars, some of people. A few looked like they'd been handled too many times. She pulled one out and stared at it for a long time before saying anything. "That's Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We used to run this place together." The name hit me like static, familiar. The same name from that late-night call. "What happened?" She turned the photo over, tracing the bent edge with her thumb. "He left. Or maybe I made him leave. I'm not sure anymore. He said I made everything about work, that I didn't know how to need anyone without resenting it. She laughed quietly, without humor. He was right. I sat on the floor beside her, the smell of cardboard and dust filling the air. He called you that night? I said carefully. She didn't look at me. He calls sometimes. I don't answer much. A pause. That night, I almost didn't. Then I saw you standing there, and for a second, I thought I saw him again. Her voice broke then, just slightly. You don't even look that much alike. It's the way you wait. The way you stand like you're afraid to interrupt the quiet. I didn't know what to say. The truth knotted in my chest. Half empathy, half something else I couldn't name. She set the photo down gently, then looked at me for the first time that evening. Her eyes were tired, but there was something new in them. Maybe that's why I keep letting you in, she said softly. Not because I should, but because I don't know how to stop repeating myself. The air seemed to thin. I could feel my pulse in my throat, my palms. Lena, she shook her head. Don't. Not yet. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the fading light. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she said, almost to the glass, sometimes the people we lose don't leave. They just change shape. And I realized, I wasn't sure anymore which version of him she was seeing when she looked at me. The first cold wind of autumn had started to slip through the cracks in the shop windows. The smell of rain had given way to dry leaves and dust, the scent of endings. I found her sitting on the concrete floor, back against the wall, a cup of untouched coffee beside her. She didn't look up when I came in. She just said, "You always find your way back here." "Habit," I said quietly. "Bad one, maybe." She smiled, faintly. "You're not the only one with those." I sat down across from her, knees nearly touching. Between us, the silence was softer now, less like something breaking, more like something exhaling. She looked different again. Not guarded, not brave. Just open in a way that felt dangerous to witness. "Did you ever talk to him again?" I asked. "No," she said. "He called once more." I didn't answer. Her fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup. "He told me once that I was impossible to love because I only gave half of myself away." I didn't believe him until lately. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. The quiet stretched, but it didn't hurt this time. Then she looked at me and asked, "What are we doing?" Her voice wasn't sharp. It trembled, like she already knew the answer but needed to hear it aloud. "I don't know," I said, trying not to ruin something that already feels ruined. "Maybe." That made her laugh, small and broken. "You make it sound tragic." "It is, a little." She leaned her head back against the wall, eyes half closed. "You know what the worst part is?" I shook my head. "I stopped feeling guilty about you a while ago," she said. "And now I don't know what that means." The words landed between us like something fragile. She turned toward me then, slowly, carefully. There was no distance to close, just the faint electricity of breath and memory and everything unsaid. Her hand brushed against mine on the cold floor. It wasn't an accident this time. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. The world outside felt suspended. No thunder, no engines, just the low hum of the fridge and the sound of our breathing sinking for the first time. She finally said, "If we do this, if we let this exist, even just for a moment, it changes everything." I know. Her thumb traced a faint line across my palm, a barely there motion that said more than anything words could. "Then why aren't you stopping?" she asked. "Because you aren't," I whispered. That made her close her eyes, her shoulders sinking in quiet surrender. No kiss, no confession, just her forehead resting against mine for a heartbeat that felt like it could last forever, or not long enough. When she finally pulled back, her voice was barely there. "This doesn't feel wrong anymore," she said. "And that might be what scares me most." We stayed there, two people who had run out of reasons to pretend, letting the silence say what love never could without breaking it. It's been months since that night in the shop. The one where neither of us said what we meant, but both of us heard it anyway. Lena doesn't work there anymore. She sold the place, moved out toward the coast, somewhere quieter, she said. She texted me once, a photo of the ocean at dusk, just a single line beneath it. "You'd like the sound here." I didn't reply right away. I didn't know what to say that wouldn't feel like pulling her back to something she finally learned to let go of. But I think about her more than I admit. Not in the way I used to, not as a what-if or a secret waiting to unfold, but as a person who reminded me that love isn't always about possession. Sometimes it's just about being seen at the right moment by someone who understands the quiet parts of you. Before her, I thought love was about certainty, about declaring, defining, owning. She taught me it's the opposite. It's the pause between words, the way someone holds your gaze a second too long, the stillness after a storm. It's knowing something matters even when it can't last. I still visit the old street sometimes. The sign above the shop is gone now, the window's empty. But every time I walk by, I catch a trace of that smell. Engine oil, rain, coffee gone cold. And I can almost hear her voice saying my name like she's trying not to. She changed me in ways she'll never know. I don't wait for things the way I used to. I don't chase what can't stay. But when someone looks at me and I feel that flicker, that quiet pull, I don't turn away anymore. I listen. Maybe that's what love really leaves behind. Not a story, not even a memory, but a shift in the way you move through the world. Sometimes I think about what she said that last night. This doesn't feel wrong anymore. And that might be what scares me most. And I realize now, she wasn't scared of being with me. She was scared of being known, after spending years hiding in her own silence. Maybe I was, too. So, no, there was no dramatic ending, no goodbye kiss under the ring. Just two people who met in the middle of their mistakes and learned how to see themselves again. And somehow, that feels more like love than anything I've known before. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?